Greetings, everybody! Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, the setting for the Pathfinder role-playing game system? If you are, your host and guide here, Candace Narravan Dracovin, can open up the gateway and lead us there. We're going to be in a bit of a dangerous place here. We're going to be meeting the bygone masters of Golarion, in a way. The Alghollthu. They also have an interesting story about a lot of stuff that's been happening with the Remaster project, and most of the lore remained the same, but there are some aspects of it that have changed, and we're going to talk about that. So, if you're ready, grab my hand, and remember to tip your guide, your host here, with a little bit of liking, subscribing, ringing the bell over on the YouTube side of things, maybe leaving a comment about how your encounters with Alghollthu have been in the past. Are they old encounters or new encounters? Especially with the changes in all the years. Anyway. Grab my hand. Take it. We're going through the gate. I'm opening it up through the universe to Golarion once more. Okay. We go. We've arrived at Golarion! Bit of a difficult journey, but not too difficult. Being here so deep under the ocean is very dangerous. Be careful. I am veiling your mind from the powers of the Alghollthu. But if you wander too far away from me, I cannot protect you from their influence. You will fall to them and become their servant for eternity. Anyway, what sources, though, may we talk about to describe the Alghollthu and learn all about them, deeper than even I have visited, or perhaps some lore that is a little bit more defunct, if you want to learn that? Well, of course, the original bestiary from 2nd edition, or any of the bestiaries, would be good. And then Monster Core does update us on at least a few of the Alghollthu-related things. Into the Darklands is a good book there, because it deals with some Alghollthu in the Darklands, of course. Hey, they have some time down there. And one of the adventure paths from the... that was my brain breaking for just a second. For the... Ruins of Aslan Adventure Path. The word ruin couldn't work in my brain. The Lost Outpost is the one I would suggest. This is the one I'm showing you here because it does have a section, Ecology of Alghollthu. But this is 1st edition. So again, there's some issues there. But it does deal with the Alghollthu and Aslan and everything that happened with that. And a lot of that has remained the same anyway, regardless of the changes between Core in the Remaster project. So, yeah. It's still a pretty good book to look at, though some things are different. Anyway, let's talk about who these beings are. What are these beings? The Alghollthu. And this is technically showing an type of Alghollthu that does not exist anymore. Fighting some characters. It was the traditional one. Why? It was an Alghollthu master. Or, as it was known, an Aboleth. Yes, the Aboleths from D&D. Again, this is another leftover from when Pathfinder was based on 3rd edition stuff. And there are some things that they were able to translate over that were kind of still acceptable to be in Pathfinder, at least when it was based off the SRD. Aboleth were one of them. Other things you couldn't do that with, but yes, you could with Aboleths. So that's why I'm going to be talking about them a little bit here. I'm going to be showing them a little bit here because they technically were Alghollthus, but they may not be anymore. And I don't know if they've been replaced. It's kind of like with dragons. The dragons are different now, and I don't know where dragons have been replaced in a lot of the lore. Alghollthu, at least for some of them, like this one, I don't know. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if it's been replaced. I don't know if it's been changed. They could just be something else called an Alghollthu Master that's something different. But we don't know, because we haven't heard from it, and they haven't shown us much. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, what are they? That was a big explanation that avoided a lot of talking about Alghollthu. They are ancient alien creatures that are largely aquatic and have occult powers to manipulate and have ruled large portions of Golarion in the past, both from above and below the waters. They basically had massive influence on the ancient human empire of Aslant, and their defiance against their rule resulted them causing the Earthfall, dropping a giant meteor on the planet because they thought it was a great idea. Kind of it was for them. Kind of it wasn't. So, We do know some things are still technically in canon lore. According to Windsong Tenets, which is you can look them up on the posts on Paizo. They've put a bunch of posts up. And they are relatively new. 2020. So, like, 4 years ago, still before the remaster project in 2nd edition. So, some of the Windsong stuff may have changed. And there's also the Alghollthu's... So, according to the Tenets, and some of the Alghollthu's own claims, they were basically creatures that existed not before the first deities, but before these first deities turned their attentions to the universe. While the deities were in the outer spheres, everything else, and turning attention to each other, dealing with the other planes and stuff like that, before they turned their attention to the universe where Golarion and all these other places were, the Alghollthu were in that area. They also were amongst the first creatures to gain intelligence and develop their own civilizations, though they have no records that have survived since then. Again, these are claims, and there is some hints in that, like the Windsong Testaments, so there's probably a core of truth there. Their story, as they would tell it, is the first of their kind, spontaneously in a pool of primordial soup on an unknown planet, awakened. Basically, I'm not saying that there weren't other creatures in that soup, but it's like early primordial ocean, somewhere, on some planet, they awakened. They could sense there was a cataclysm in the sky, and they remember their basically everything, because they have kind of a cellular memory, and they understand that this cataclysm was the cause of their first of their kind's awakening, whatever it was. Again, they probably couldn't really understand whatever this cataclysm was, but it awakened them. They sensed other creatures around them, but they were the only intelligent ones. And this comes at their first dictum. Life exists to be controlled. The first one realized it was mortal and absorbed nearby life forms, but it wasn't enough to survive. Eventually, instead of just fully consuming a prey, they merely ended its life before allowing it to perform its normal functions for its benefit. So before, consume it, end its life. Now, work for me, help me out. And this is the second dictum, and Alghollthu is to control. Now its energies are needed is fulfilled. It doesn't have to go out of its way to hunt, it's getting some other things to work for it. And it basically evolved and seeded the planet with other life forms. It basically set out to control all life forms in its reach, at first. It grew large from absorbed creatures, but it was still frail. Its structures weakened, and its conscience started to fragment. And it was unable to express its rage. Its membrane eventually cracked, and it split. No longer drained. Its consciousness stabilized. Two. They divided into two creatures. And there's the third one. Alghollthus are eternal as many and one. So they, split. They're very primitive creatures in a lot of ways. They, divide, and then there's two of them. Asexually reproduce. Asexual. So eventually, they evolved, seeded the planet with other life forms, created a global empire, ruled for millennia over the lessers of their planet. And something went wrong, though. The creatures they had created had some form of intelligence, and these servants and slaves rose up against them, caught them unaware. They didn't realize that, hey, we've been oppressing these other beings that we created or took control of on our home planet for all this time. They resisted, but, basically, enslaving every life form on a planet to serve you, it draws a lot of life forms which hate you, too. A lot of them. So they're losing. It's a war of attrition. A lot of millions of rebels fell, but only a few thousand Alghollthu survived. And they went underground before they could exterminate. So they chose the wisest and most powerful, and basically amongst themselves, and sacrificed themselves to merge into the first of what became the family masters. The rulers of the Alghollthu society. Their intelligence, capable of leading them to salvation. They studied glyph magic. Took them a long time, 80 years. The insurgents pushed back their territory, killing more and more of them. Only a few Alghollthu A few thousand perhaps were left, with a few dozen Veiled Masters. They spent over a decade creating 2 powerful glyphs, and uttered the final dictum. To overreach is to threaten the eternal. The first glyph was activated. It created portals to habitable worlds. A Veiled Master went out to each accompanied by a score of other lesser Alghollthu, to build small colonies. The glyph expired. Rebels arrived, slaughtered the remaining Alghollthu, and the sole Veiled Master, who stayed, activated the second glyph, destroying them. So, as Aboleth stories would tell, their homeworld is gone. The rebels that turned against them, all dead. And now they spread to the stars. Again, how much aspects of this history is true and how much of it is Alghollthu histrionics? I don't know. But there's our friend the Veiled Master. Anyway, one of those Veiled Masters went to Golarion! And here's another picture of a Aboleth from 2nd edition, but this is, the bestiary. And again, Veiled Aboleth, Alghollthu Master, Aboleth, does it exist anymore? I don't know. But we're using it as a picture. So on Golarion, they arrived during the Age of Creation. They ruled the oceans, while the land was dominated by Zyomorns, which are creatures from the elemental plane of Earth. I'm not going to get too deep about Zyomorns. I think they kind of deserve the Vault Keepers, as they're also known, an episode on their own. They're kind of neat. But during this time period, before a lot of stuff was on Golarion, when it was just a primeval world, there were just basically 2 groups of intelligent things there. They came to war! The Alghollthu managed to drive the Zyomorns off of Golarion. Not that there isn't some stuff left over from them. Again, there is some stuff left over from them. We'll talk about it when I talk about them in a future video. We get to the Age of Legends, and there's humans now around. And the Alghollthus began to experiment on them. They raised the Atlanti humans for barbarism, teaching them to control magic. The interaction between them were handled by the Veiled Masters, who used illusions to disguise themselves and walk among the humanity as powerful wizards. They basically nurtured the empire of Aslan, and basically spread their power throughout its ascendancy. This is the zenith of what became known as the Second Alghollthu Empire. Basically, this colony was the most successful of them. Eventually, though, Zin, a visionary, founder of Thassalon, discovered the secrets of glyph magic. Others followed him, and they all then discovered Alghollthu manipulation. Now, he was banished from the great Thassalonian Empire, and people didn't listen to him for a while yet for his warnings about the influence that they had. But the Alghollthus realized at this time, oh shit, someone knows our secret. We gotta do something now. And so, they went to do something more subtle. They learned their lessons back in the old day of their own homeworld. They've been basically manipulating and controlling stuff subtly from the background. They're like, when we're in the front, people want to murder us. We're in the background. We can't be found out. So, yeah. Omnipaths dominated agents to provide them with information. Veiled Masters in human guise sowed discord between Aslan and Thassalon. Faceless Stalkers assassinated leaders. Mimics wreaked havoc. Yes, both Faceless Stalkers and Mimics were created by Alghollthu. If you ever see a Mimic, then, in Golarion, it's Alghollthu's fault. Granted, they don't have control of it anymore. Created it. None of these succeeded. In fact, it kind of pissed them off and wanted them to overturn their teachers. So ultimately, Alghollthu representing all the worlds that they had gone to, a group known as the, I'm going to butcher this one, Mashalastru, convened and basically authorized Earthfall in Golarion. They're like, yes, we've been very successful here. Yes, but I guess it's time to reset things over there, and you'll figure it out. We're going to reset it, we're just going to go back to scratch over there. We'll do a little bit of, global catastrophe, get rid of the people that we don't like. You can reset things over there. We're going to be fine back on our planets. Don't worry about it. We devastate humanity, erase all traces of their involvement. They could start from scratch, being a little bit more secretive next time. The Golarion speaker was devolved into non-sentient single-cell organism. for his failure to keep it in their secret, I guess. You know, that's pleasant. Yeah, the Golarion speaker that went to this meeting basically was like, yeah, no, single-celled organism. More than half of the Alghollthus on Golarion went into hibernation in those deep oceans and caverns, and until given permission by the Massaro to re-emerge. The Alghollthus then used glyph magic, reached out in space, called down a meteor, the Starstone, to obliterate the upstart humans. Story as old as time. Weird fish monsters from the... Well, they're not really fish. Weird aquatic monsters from the depths trying to annihilate everything with a rock from space. Humanity had its protectors, though. The Atlantic goddess Kavana learned of the plan, pulled a moon from its orbit to intercept the meteor. The Starstone impacted with it. It wasn't slown or deflected, but shattered into a million pieces. Pieces pierced the goddess's manifestation, killing her, and then the Starstone continued and impacted with Golarion. It obliterated the continent of Aslan and pledged the world to the Age of Darkness. But it wasn't an end of the war. It just shattered into something that caused a lot of devastation, but it was far less. To the Alghollthu's great alarm, though, they kind of miscalculated the destructive power of the Starstone's impact. The thing is, it shattered and fell in pieces. And that was a miscalculation. If it had arrived as it was, whole. So, not only did it destroy and severely cripple every major land-based civilization of the age, it also left a severe downturn in Alghollthu's own advanced society and ocean floor. They were also affected. Most survived, albeit asleep. They've also been known to rescue a number of humans from the destruction of it, flesh warp them, and create some of the other various creatures. Azarketi, aka Gillmen, were created by them. Merfolk were in fact created by Alghollthu. Yeah, so they created other creatures and other humanoid species, and those are results of their uses. Let's talk about some of their types a little bit here, too. And again, we really can only confirm one of their main types, and some that appeared in books that are maybe close enough that we might know. The main one is, of course, the Videl, the Veiled Masters. We know they exist. They're in Monster Core. That's one I can point down and be like, oh yeah, they're there. And we know, because of Monster Core, other Alghollthus exist. The Veiled Masters are the rulers of Alghollthu society. That tells you they have others below them, but we also know that there are greater and more mysterious ones that function as organic thought networks, immense aquatic engines of war, specialized extractors of forgotten secrets. I can mention some of these other types that were there, because some of these match these, but again, whether or not they actually exist or not is kind of hard to tell. Like, there is the Omnipath, which are the evolved thought network. Hey, let's talk about that. There was a thought network. So they mention the organic thought network. So Omnipath, probably still there. Thumbs up. Another one is the Plezizoths, basically serving Veiled Masters of Tormentors. Brutish, basically sub-race of them. Muscles, probably exist. The Tholastic Architect, also known as Uldragothus, with telepathic powers to manipulate physical matter, maybe exists. The Anciens, poorly known as a subrace of them, also known as the Fifth Victim, kind of lesser stock that serve the Veiled Masters. And of course, then the Alghollthu Masters. Do they exist? Do they not exist? They were the most common, well-known member of the Alghollthu species. So probably there is a version of them or something taking their place that exists. Maybe? For normal citizenry of it? It's hard to tell then. This is also an Alghollthu, just to let you know. It's pleasant looking, isn't it? So those are some of their major things. And they do have some big creations, of which at least we know that the Alghollthu, or Faceless Stalker, do exist. They are in Monster Core. But we know there are other creations that they have. Out there, again, most of them have broken away from them. Like, the Faceless Stalkers still exist under their power. Others, Merfolk, Azrakedi, Mimics, no. Hard to say. But we'll talk about the creations in a minute. Anyway. So, that's the Alghollthu, the Faceless Stalker. So, nowadays, if you're going to know about where to find a Alghollthu on Golarion, well, they're in places. That's the easy way to say it. They had a lot of powerful areas in the Darklands, especially the sea that they ruled over. Those underground cities were largely abandoned. Probably there's still some small members of their society there. Also in the land of Black Blood, in the Darklands. So in the Darklands, yes. In the Deep Ocean, ancient cities such as Vash Gurgvagal in the Arcadian Ocean, that explorers sometimes go to, still exists. It's just that even with Alghollthu surviving the way they did post-Earthfall, they don't have major cities or civilizations like they did. They lost control of many of their servants and stuff. So, yeah. Their society in a way is very fractured, but again, they are very often united in their front. Not always. Because we can talk about something that shows there's division among the Alghollthu. That is unique and interesting. And it might be a little bit more divided than you'd think. So certainly speaking, Alghollthu society as a whole is atheistic. They said to have existed long before gods took interest in the universe. The deities that are worshipped by the land dwellers are young upstarts who came to plunder the resources and conquer the universes, unworthy of their attention. They recognize their power, but are not in religious awe of them, and they believe a sufficiently absolved Alghollthu could easily rise. Doesn't mean a few Alghollthu seek easy power and worship a deity. They are masters of arcane and occult magics that mess with the mind, transmute the body. Divine magic. Maybe primal magic. Outside of their purview. But what if you could grab another source of magic? Divine magic. Now these Alghollthu who turn to a god are oftentimes hunted and exterminated by their own kind. But organized cults that exist in road enclaves can exist. So that means somewhere out there, some dark god has convinced a number of Alghollthu to serve them, probably worship them, to gain power. Maybe over their king, maybe over certain deities. Hard to say. Yep. All good. Anyway. So. Let's talk about some of the creatures they've created. Here. And this is a picture of a scum. Scum might not exist anymore. It was an Ulat Kinis. Does it exist anymore? I can't say for sure. It's one of those things is the Alghollthu did a lot of flesh warping and flesh crafting and created a lot of beings. So it's really hard to say which of them still exists and which of them does not. It's an unfortunate. We know some do still exist, of course. I mentioned the merfolk. The Azrakedi. Those are two species that were created by Alghollthu that still exist. Of course, the Alghollthu, the Faceless Stalkers, still exist. They are in Monster Core as a servant of them. That is oftentimes still a servant of them. But there are other horrors they've created. So, yeah, the merfolk, the Sapinquali Oath, the mimics were supposedly created by them. Multi Spalthol and Toti Mimic. Haragrodai, the Shell Sentinel or Scaleu, Scum, the Ulat Kini, again, we're not sure about them. The Faceless Hawk, Urgroth, Slime Puppeteer, Ngothel, Deepwalker, the Puthru, Cloaker, that's probably not going to exist anymore. The Futhru, the Chul was one of them, probably also not going to exist anymore. Truthosis, again, those are two that I kind of going to point out that are like, there are ones like, I mean, it probably still exists. I can probably look up it. That's one of those ones that you can point out and like, because they're still there. you can't really like get rid of that one per se. They don't have Mimic in the monster pool. I wanted to check that out. So Mimics might not exist anymore. We're going to pull that out of the... Not sure, maybe? Ceratoroidy, and then the Abominal. Again, these are all their creations that existed from the older editions into 2nd edition. How many still exist beyond the Faceless Stalker? I don't know. You know, we only really have suggestions in the Monster Core. We'll finish it here. Of one actual type of Alghollthu, with suggestions of some subspecies that do exist. You know, I went through a little bit of the list, and they mention things like, without mentioning by name, the Omnipath, and some of the others that we've gotten stats for through 1st and 2nd edition. So some of those do exist. There are others that are like the regular citizenry of Alghollthu, which used to be the Alghollthu Masters. Are they now? Are the things that were abolished there are gone? And how much of the Alghollthu's creations still exist? We have 2 of them, you know, folks still exist, the legendary thing, you know, Azraketi still exist, but like, Mix? I don't know. Not in the Monster Core. There's a lot of questions on things that are like, either in or out of Monster Core and what exists sometimes in here. It's a fine line between stuff when they updated stuff heading away. So we'll always have questions. But again, regardless, it does give examples of what the Alghollthu did. They made a lot of horrible monstrosities that they could use to control and manipulate the beings under them. They are masters of the mind and master of flesh rule. They will manipulate beings in their physical forms to serve their own purposes. Yes, they have lost a lot of forces. Yes, they don't rule anything anymore. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't want to try. They lost their kingdom. And it was, in a way, their own fault. Earthfall did just as much damage as being found out was. Probably even worse. And the rest of the council of other worlds, from the sound of it, weren't doing that well. When the Golarion Alghollthu are the 2nd Alghollthu Empire, it tells me the rest of those planets were settlements, they weren't big. So they screwed up their one success story, which wasn't going well anyway. Because, you know, manipulation, mind control, slavery, all those things that they love to do. Because they believe themselves superior to everything else that's come after them. We'll go with the first. And we'll leave that there. It's, interesting place to go. They'll go. I hope we see more about them and more versions of them come back in the remastered copies. They at least confirm some of their other more interesting creations. But we'll see if that happens. But if you want to see more of my stuff in the future, go ahead and check me out either live on Twitch or over on the YouTube side. On the Twitch side of things, I do recordings for tabletop stuff like this one. I do live plays of tabletop shows. Hey, one's coming up in a couple of weeks. Mark the hint for when this was live. Go check it out if it's already been out. Fall of Abyswing. Discussing Tabletop Saturdays at 6, where we talk about news of the week in the tabletop world, new discussion topics, and I do some gaming over there. A lot of fun. I really recommend people come and hang out, at least lurk around. But if you want to just give the best support, hey, that's the YouTube side of things. That's where you can like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave me a comment. Your encounters will go through. I know Alghollthu Masters, aka Aboleths, are things I've had characters fight against in the past. Veiled Master's a lot more powerful. I don't know if I'd use that, but again, it's also like, there are more out there in between. I don't know. So yeah, all my videos go up there. Go check those out. All my schedule for either being on Twitch, uploads and stuff, that's on my social media. That's my Discord, my Blue Sky, Twitter/X. That's the order of importance. I also put the tactics up there, life updates, all those kind of things. You can always come back and hang out and chat. Twitch somewhere. Comment, YouTube stuff. Always good. Anyway, I'm keep going. We'll hang out on Twitch and do some more videos. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.